Is there nothing we can do for someone else who's in pain?
Well, first it depends on the nature of the pain and the depth of the pain. You know, if someone comes to you with a cut, says, "Can you give me a bandaid?" Sure, if you have one, give it to them. You know. If someone comes in and says, you know, "This is my fifth boyfriend and he has left me and I need some help," I think you should just kind of walk the other direction. And that depends on really um, I mean, if someone has had 5 failed relationships, for example, there's just too much stuff there. Their decision making abilities, what they're looking for, the sort of traps they fall into all the time. That's one thing. The second is all the emotions that you have to go through to kind of figure out, you know, what to do with. There's a good chance that uh, you know, sometimes people are just far too damaged beyond repair. And then you have to kind of sit back and say, okay, what do you want to do with your energy and your time? And I keep saying that, and it's for the most part a projection on my part because I'm at a stage where I don't have much time and I don't have much energy, which translates into I don't have much patience, you know. And if, for example, you come to me and say, well, you know, I have some relationship difficulties, truth is, I don't really care. You know, I don't care how you've been broken in your relationship. If I'm not the cause of your brokenness, my words are not going to do much for you. You know, I mean, if you have bought a bike from Costco, that's the only place you can return the bike to get a refund. You can't take it to Safeway. You know, uh, you know the shed I made downstairs is close to a tree, so when I wanted to put the foundation, pour some concrete, I came upon a root and it was thick. So I took out my saw and I just sawed the root. It was thick and it was long. I got rid of it. There was a big hole. I poured concrete, put some rebars. The shed is there. If someone comes to you with some sort of a pain, the first thing you need to do is just sit back and I think listen for a few minutes to see maybe the root cause of this pain. You know, if, for example, someone comes to you and says, when I was 5, my father, or when I was 15, my boyfriend. I say, listen, you know, you're like 35. And you're talking to me about an episode that took place some 20 years ago. If something that happened 25 years ago has been bothering you, this is no longer a pain. that has this tiny little branch in your life. It's like cancer. I can't do much. It's very difficult to overhaul a human being. Because you're not just dealing with pain, you're dealing with a very specific way of feeling about things. Not just one thing, everything. You're also having a certain way of thinking that encourages emotional habits, and the emotions encourage mental habits. That's just too many things, And it also depends on whether or not you have ever sat and reflected on what it takes for anyone to change. It's if you have the energy to give your ears to someone for a couple of hours, good for you, and good for the person who's like blasting in your ears. That's fine. If on the other hand, you say, change is nearly impossible, so there is a chance. It requires time, it requires love, it requires intimacy, it requires passiveness, it requires repetition, And then you look at someone and say, okay, well, why don't you just sign up for all my classes? I can't. Well, why? I'm usually asleep until like 11 o'clock. So do you teach like around noon? I say, no. So, oh, well, maybe I can take you next semester. Okay then, see you around. The other thing you need to, I think, understand is when someone has been living in pain for a long, long time, perhaps gossip is the best remedy for them. That they just like to go around talking about it. And, it's talk therapy. As long as they're just talking, they're okay. But the moment they stop talking, they can't do anything. And it's good to know all those things, because then, you don't have wrong expectations from yourself or the other person. I build the shed so my shoulder is out. I do little things, like sitting and not moving, I'm not going to expect myself to do like stuck on the wall. I can't do it. Or doing the shingles. Just can't do it. It depends really in some ways what sort of a pain you're dealing with. I don't really think you need to worry about, those things, and I'll tell you why. If you have been dealing with a trauma and talking has been your way and you've tried to change but it's not been possible, you kind of, without perhaps knowing or being aware, something deep inside just tells you that things are just not going to change. You just give up. And you expect, it's very natural, other people to give up on you. You know? You know, I remember I used to tell the story at Sierra College at the end of, or maybe the beginning of every class, which was every semester, which was, you know, there is this carpenter who works with this guy, and he'd been working with this guy for like, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And he calls him and says, I'm tired. I want to retire. No more houses, please. I don't want to build anything else. He says, okay. And his boss calls him like an hour later and says, just one last house, please, one last house. Okay. You know, but because he had just came to a place where he just didn't want to build anything anymore. He builds this house, but in a very clumsy way. And then after like 6, 7 months, he calls his boss and says, it's finished. Pay me, please. And, you know, this guy comes, they're both standing, and he gives him the key to the front door, and he says, this is your house. After so many years of working for me, this is my gift to you.
Oh, no.
And he's really happy, but he also knows that it's going to leak, you know, the wall is going to fall. And then he gets really sad. And it's a great story because I think all of us, at all times, we're building a house. You know, you're building something. And whatever it is that you're building, you're going to live in it. You know. And it's true that, you know, sometimes you just don't have money to buy the best materials to buy the house. Sometimes you have the money, you buy the best materials. You just don't know how to put them together. You know. Sometimes you have all of those things, you just don't know how to live in it. You know, so we're always missing some very, very important tools. You know. You know, the difficulty of your question, Kendra, is that you know, there are so many things in life that just make you angry. From the moment you're born, you know, and if, of course, you know, you have not completely checked out, there's so many things you need to do in a single lifetime. Please your parents, please your teacher, please your husband or your wife, please your children, please yourself, please your boss. Live sanely in an insane environment, and then be okay with getting old and looking like crap. Be okay with getting sick. Be okay when your parents die. Be okay when you see your kids ruin their lives. There's just too many things, you know. What used to work for us is that you live in cultures that gave you such strong foundations, you know. And it just didn't matter how much the world crapped on you. There were just certain things you would never, ever, ever do. Never, ever, ever say. You know. You would think, but you would never express. You would feel, but it would be private. And there were all these rituals in place. You were angry, well, you just, I don't know, go somewhere and deal with it. You go into a well and you scream. You go to the mosque and you cry. You go on a march and you try to bring justice into society. And you also lived in an environment where individual expressions were garbage. You don't exist in society as an individual. You belong to a community, a tribe. You have a name, you have a reputation, you protect it. You just, but now that you have none of those protecting the human psyche, it's really difficult to kind of resolve deep-seated issues. You just don't know what to do, because there are no buffers anymore. I mean, all the things that you feel and you want to kind of just scream and lash out, those are the ids, the Freudian infantile part of you. But you have society as a superego. You're angry, don't hit anyone, go right. You're angry, go for a walk. Someone died, well, go to the mosque and cry. Make sure you're not alone for the next 40, 50 days. And there were like all these rituals that protected you. Well, now you have a bundle of id, all these raw, aggressive emotions, but there are no containers for them. And so you have to kind of figure things out. And after a while, it's just devastating. I mean, mentally you get broken. Emotionally you get exhausted. And you get depressed. And, well, the only thing that's out there to help you are medication. There is nothing else. I mean, most of the therapists, these days, they take an online class or online school. They get degrees without having, and they do like 200 hours of working with like dogs and cats. Whether you're on a intellectual, spiritual, or just regular life quest, you really need a support system to survive it. Regardless of the nature of your pain, you better have some good friends around you. If you don't have friends, I hope you're religious. If you're not religious, I hope you can write well, and then publish it. But you need to really have a way to kind of output and express. Sarah's father, Emmanuel, he was a really interesting man. He had gone through a lot of hardship in life. He never spoke of them. Never. He was built tough. And he tried to be as, respectful and dignified. And of course, as you get older, you have less patience for nonsense, And sometimes I would like say something and he would say, Amir, you're too old to talk to me this way or tell this joke or behave in this particular way. Just go away and come back later on. I'm tired right now. So, okay, sorry. But it's difficult to find people who are self-contained now. Where you can kind of put your stuff somewhere, walk away, and just kind of live healthily in different areas of life. Again, Kendra, it really depends on what sort of pain, you know. Hafiz has this poem. It's a really beautiful poem. هیچ راهی نیست کان را نیست پایان غم مخور. That if I was to replace some of the words, it would kind of sound like there is no pain that is without a remedy. Not be sad. You know, at the end of every line it says, just do not be sad. And I think it's true that whatever the difficulties may be, whatever the pain or the trauma may be, there is always a remedy. But it starts with not having, okay, going on this really difficult journey, going through lots of ups and downs, reaching your destination. Once you have, then you will have the remedy. You know, and you know, it's kind of like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. You have cancer 4. You're not going to wake up like 5 years later, you know, that you have cancer 0 now. What will happen is that you will have cancer 4, but now you have reached a place of acceptance. There's always a remedy. But you need really someone to kind of just hold your hand and take you through this journey. And you can't do it with teachers who are old. It's just not possible because they just, as you age and as you understand more, you lack the patience for people who are just nutty. You need someone who is young, who has lots of energy, who are naive and are consumed by hopefulness, that they have this mirage or illusion in their head that they can fix anything and everything. Those are the people you need, you know. And should they have enough knowledge, wisdom, insight, know-how, they can kind of just take your hand and slowly guide you through. And you know, after a while you say, yeah, I think I got it, you know. You know, there comes a stage where you just really need to exercise a huge amount of humility, where you say, I know that I don't know, and I need help. Because for the most part, your ego or your experiences or your self-worth, whatever that may be, it won't allow you to say those things. It won't allow you to say that I am incompetent, I need help. You know, I mean, look at these kids. They're 4. You know, they take the sharpest knife. So let me cut this apple. Are you kidding? You're 4. You're an idiot. Go get a butter knife. No. I want that knife. That butchers a cow. You know. And that's how strong our will and our ego are, you know. The assumption is we can do everything on our own, and the truth is we can, especially if and you just better pray that you fall into the hands of the right people. Otherwise you can be 18, you can come from Italy, you go to Grass Valley, and your life just gets ruined, you know. So there is, you know, there is some, I don't know if it's luck, having maybe intentions that are relatively sincere. You know, I don't know. I don't know if you have ever seen that movie, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You know, there is this woman who has killed this teacher. And she says, yeah, you know, your teacher slept with me but didn't find me worthy enough to give me the secrets of, what was it called, Wujan or something. And then there's this tiny little girl, you know, her boss. She just reads the manual and she gets it. I don't know how that happens. You know, it's like something that we talk about all the time in classes, which is, I don't know how you make a Magic Johnson. I don't know how a Muhammad Ali is created. I don't know how you make a Malcolm X or a Jesus Christ or a Socrates. They're just unique. They have something. And what they have, the rest of us see and long for. We yearn to have those things. And I think the best that we can do sometimes is just be around Socrates and say, okay, well, you know what? I don't want to be Socrates. I can be Socrates. You know, it's enough just to be around. So whoever is in pain, you know, I hope they fall in the right place. Both, you know, internally for themselves as well as outwardly, where they're in the right, around the right people who can help them. You know the nice thing about having a toothache? You're never going to get addicted to the pain. You will do whatever you can to get that damn tooth out, or get it filled, or, you know, just kill the nerve or something. Emotional pain, it's very cunning, very deceptive. You'll use it to manipulate, to self-deceive, to other-deceive. It will create 1,001 different habits. It'll form identity, meaning, purpose. It'll destroy you. And by the time you figure this out, realize this, and rise up to change it, you need the Hercules to walk into your life. Because, you know, you have like 20 years of like stuff inside you. And it's too much, you know. So physical pain, that's not a problem. It never is, really. But, you know, a pain that has become psychological and you keep rewinding and replaying. You know, and that's one thing that Gurdjieff used to talk about, which is if you have pain, just don't talk about it. You know, because then you just reinforce it. And don't even think about it. I mean, that's the idea of self-remembering. But it's difficult because we like to indulge, you know, and there is a good amount of pleasure to be had. You know, it's great when you go somewhere and someone gives you attention for an hour or two. They listen to your pain. You are the center of their universe. Who doesn't want to do that? You know, versus you go somewhere and you just sit there and no one talks to you, you don't talk to anybody because you have nothing to say. And you just go home feeling crappy. Well, that was a waste of a night. Nobody came to me, nobody talked to me. You know, the flip side is you go somewhere, oh, let me tell you what happened. My boyfriend and my girlfriend and my this, the gossip begins, and all of a sudden you have like 50 people listening to you. It's beautiful. You know.